And we're live. And we're good.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the Tech Academy. We are very happy to have our wonderful guests here, Brett Tramposh and Angela Enloe. And we have some great guests here, and we have some people obviously out on the internet as well. And we're excited to hear what you're going to be talking about today. And I'll let you have the floor.
All right,
Thank you very much. So I'll start off and just give a brief intro to the talk. So when I was speaking with Aaron about managing careers in tech, it's a huge, huge topic. There's so much that we could cover. Today we've chosen just to focus in on a few tips, and we'll probably move pretty quickly through these items. But we will also have an opportunity to engage in some discussion and questions, Q&A stuff towards the end. So we're going to try not to eat it all up with the talking so that we have that opportunity. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Brett Tramposh, and I have slides. I've been here in the Portland area for my whole career, pretty much, a couple stints out, and for several different companies, and going from quality assurance to leadership roles to web design, that type of thing. So a breadth of different opportunities.
And I'm Angela Enloe, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to partner with Brett. It's great to be here. I love to do talks like this and help folks with their career. It's a passion of mine, so it's great. I'm an IT director at XPO Logistics. I've done a broad group of industries from healthcare, finance, retail, software, and now logistics. So I've touched many different industries, but also touched many different IT applications or groups, teams, from development to QA. Spent majority of my time in some type of QA testing of some type, configuration management, project management, all kinds of areas. So
it's a good segue into, I wanted to just show everyone, before we get onto that, the broad spectrum. So these are the companies that Angela and I have both individually worked for during the years. And it represents a wide spectrum, like she had said, about the industry, different industries, whether it was healthcare or shrink wrap software or security. I mean, it just goes on and on. And even with that, that's just a scratch of the number of companies and opportunities that are here in the Portland area. So with that, I'd like to just ask the audience real quick, how many folks today are just launching out on their career in tech?
a good portion.
Okay, so a good portion. How many are restarting from previous careers and now going into tech? Okay, so a good number there as well. How many have been in tech for a while? Okay, how many years?
2, 3.
Okay,
So usually working 5
yeah, recognize some of them. Others? Years in tech? Yeah, yeah. So the good news is there's longevity in high tech, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, because one thing about it, it's constant change.
Portland's a really high market right now for tech. There's lots of demand for technical folks if you have the right skill set that the organization. Do you look like you're going to be able to adapt and have a passion about the work you're doing, right? So it's really important. But from a woman's perspective, I think where my career really changed is when I decided to lean in and have confidence myself. There are a lot of roadblocks that women face with maybe preferences for men, or they don't think that women can be leaders, or they don't think women can code or can do what they want. And there's bias there, but I really having confidence yourself and riding the fine line between being too overconfident and too loud or too boisterous. You want to be able to have your voice at the table. You want to be able to sit at the table You want to be able to lean in and know what you know, but you don't want to be meek, mild, and sit at the back of the room. You really want to sit at the front of the room. You want to sit at the table. You want to share just as much as your male partners do, and you want to participate. But you have to do the same work as the male partner, right? You have to do your studies. You have to learn what the company needs and wants, and be a partner.
I would say one of my friends I was talking to, she had taken on a new job, and where she was the manager of the team, and it was first day, and she walks into the meeting room, and there was some people there that asked her if she could get coffee for them. And this was not that long ago, it was about 15 years ago, but and she's like, yeah, what do you want? So she goes and does it, and as she leaves, the other was like, that's our new boss, right? Oh yeah, she said it was a very silent meeting after that, but she definitely got their attention, so I thought that was an awesome story. And I would say that opportunity comes in many forms, and you just have to be looking for it, whether, whatever role you're in, you just have to be looking for it. I want to talk for a minute on the skill side of it. So you're getting in and you're learning how to code, you're learning how to put sites together. The skill aspect is so broad today in high tech. I mean, you can't possibly know everything or how to do everything. And so you really do have to, in your career, make some choices on some verticals that you want to get really good at. And I put that in the category of know your job. And so when you get in and you're starting your job, you're getting into that first rung, really dig in and know what your role is and what your skill set needs to be, and focus on that and build that.
What's expected of you too? Are you talking to your manager and understanding what they're expecting? Because you can't assume, you really can't assume that I know what my job is and I think I should be doing X, but your manager might be thinking you should be doing X and Y and you're not doing any of Y, right? So it's really, really important that if your manager's not having the conversation with you, which they should, but there are managers that don't, you need to have that conversation with them. Am I doing what you expect? Am I doing all of it? Where am I not doing good? Because if you don't ask those questions, you won't know, and you're going to assume you're doing fine, and you may not, and they may have a different opinion of you.
Right.
Sorry.
No, it's absolutely a great point to make, because it is a bit of a dance as far as that goes, and you have to be checking in frequently, and not only with your boss, but you should check in with your peers as well, and ask them, how am I doing? How am I doing this or that? Be inquisitive on that, because that input really helps you in forming and moving forward on that. So I want to move ahead here. There's a comment that's floated out there all the time, which is hire for attitude, train for skills. And it's simple, but it is true. That when you're interviewing a body of candidates and they have very similar skills, even similar experience, you're looking for those little things that tell you about their attitude and about their success in actually accomplishments that they've made. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but definitely keep attitude at the top of that. So Angela, why don't you talk a little bit about the soft skill aspect?
Yeah, so we touched a little bit on soft skills, but it is really important to understand. We've listed here, conflict and pitching your idea and being professional, right? This is professional. It could be in your personal life, right? People can see your Facebook posts, right? You have to really it's out there in the open. Even if you've locked things down, you really want to be sure that you're approaching your life in a way that others see you as a professional person, right? All these seem pretty, seem like, oh yeah, I know all those. I should be not having conflict in the workplace, or I should be pitching my ideas and, doing these types of things. But when you get into situations in your workplace, sometimes they arise and you don't even know about it, especially if you're really a passionate person about what you're doing and you're visiting with somebody else that's passionate about it too, right? Conflict may arise. How do you handle that? your leaders are going to want to know and see that you're able to resolve some of those problems yourself. They're not wanting you running to them every single time you're arguing with your coworker, right? Or there's a debate about how to approach on something. How can you work through those kinds of things? I often, probably every single day, look at LinkedIn and I read articles from people that write great articles about things that help us in our career. And one of my favorite is Dr. Travis Bradbury. He wrote a book about emotional IQ, or EQ is what he calls it. And it is a powerful thing to be able to have the emotional know-how. And I'm going to read, I wrote down some items, but I think it's important enough to read. There's some factors here that a person with high IQ and low EQ, which is your emotional intelligence, has less likely to be successful than a person with high EQ and a medium IQ, or high EQ and a medium IQ. So meaning, it says, he quotes that there's 70% of the time a person with an IQ, of average IQ, but they have high EQ, they're more successful. I'm just going to read a couple of the things that, so you can understand what EQ is, that you're curious about people. You embrace change. You're not afraid of that. Yeah, change is hard, and when change happens in the environment, it's tough when you have change happening in your workplace. But figure out how to work in that. Understand your own strengths and weaknesses. Those types of things. A judge of character. Who am I working with, or who is my manager, or who's the company that I'm working with? Those types of things are really, and there's a lot. So go out to LinkedIn and look at Travis Bradbury's writings. He writes articles every single day. He's posting stuff every single day that's really helpful to all of us. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Do you want to talk anything more?
Well, in particular, the pitching your ideas part, this is something that a lot of folks don't really think about, especially starting out. But you're going to get in a situation where you've got a great idea about changing the product, or about how to do the code, or any number of things. And how do you bring that to fruition? How do you sort of bring that up, mentor it through the process, and then get it done? Those are skills that you can learn, and things that you can study on and build up competencies. There's a lot of good books about doing the pitch, and you can apply that to your regular daily work life. And how do you present something? The old Carnegie, how to make friends and influence people. It's all of those skills about how do you get someone else to think about the idea from your perspective and get that turned around. And you'll find there's little bits of that everywhere in your job and as you go through. And this is where things around soft skills are important. Delegation is another big one. Most of us don't delegate well. And so if you get the opportunity to lead a small group, to develop, or maybe you end up becoming a manager, those delegation skills are really critical for knowing how to sort of size up and understand what somebody's able to take on, and then delegate to them the proper amount of work or kind of work, so that you're not overloading them and making them unsuccessful and so on. So these are all soft skill areas that are really important.
And if you're delegating too, making sure that you're not you're checking in with the person, you're understanding what they need help with or what they're doing fine with, because you could delegate something and say, I need it done by Tuesday, right? And Tuesday comes and goes, and you're kind of going, what's going on? This person's struggling and not knowing what to do because they're caught on something. So as the person that's delegating work, you really have to not only delegate the work, but make sure there isn't any roadblocks. Make sure you're checking in with them. Make sure that, and you as the person that maybe received the work, make sure you're going back and within enough time to say, I'm stuck, right? I'm stuck. What do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? How can I solve this problem? Or I'm lost on how to do whatever it is that you got assigned to. So don't let the deadline of whatever it is come and go, or come so close that there's nothing else to do, right? You only have another day to solve the problem.
comment I wanted to make here is that people remember an experience. So they seldom remember your specific skill other than you got the job done or it was, it was a great effort, but they do remember the experience of working with you and interacting with you. And so that's why we call out the soft skill part of it, is as you move through your careers, that experience is what carries with you from job to job and people to people. And we're going to talk next about some of that networking and mentoring aspect. So this is an area that I've coached folks on and mentored folks on over the years because I benefited so greatly in my different roles from having great mentors that helped guide me, gave me an ear to go to when I had questions, or maybe I had a lot of fear about a certain, activity or taking on a team or whatever. Somebody I could bounce ideas off of. And the mentoring aspect is critical, and I would definitely say every one of you should be looking for personal mentors that you can go to and interact with. And they'll change throughout your career, because you're going to change. You're going to start off here, but you're going to end up down there. And along that path, you're going to have different opportunities and different people mentoring you throughout.
And I'm sorry, he said mentors with an S,
Yeah.
right? You're going to want more than one.
Yeah, and I liked your point earlier, too, if you want to hit on that
Yeah.
again about it.
Yeah, so I said mentors come in different shapes and sizes. You can have somebody that maybe you've asked, can you be my mentor? Can you help me? And they go, yeah, sure. But you can also look at somebody you respect in your company, right? Somebody that you attend meetings with all the time that seems to be really successful. And are you watching? What are they doing? How are they attacking things or not? How are they either passive or aggressive? And you can learn by just watching a person and mimicking or copying or even maybe on a sideline saying, how do you do that? How do you come up with those types of questions? Or how do you, so calmly when somebody maybe attacked you, how do you calmly respond? Or, ask them just for a specific, it's a mentor from watching and mimicking, but you can also ask one question and they can actually be a mentor for you, help guide you in your learning on the way. And I'm going to throw one more woman thing in there, is that when I was young in my career, I was extremely emotional about lots of things. I was so proud of things and I held them so close that I probably took offense if somebody told me I didn't do a good job or it didn't go over well, or right, I felt really emotional about what I was doing. You can learn and you can put your emotions away while you're at work. You can tuck them away and you can learn by watching others and seeing what they're doing and talking and having mentors. It's hard, it's not easy, but you can, because I know I have, right? I'm in really tough situations a lot of times and I do not make it emotional. I do not make it an emotional issue or have emotional reactions.
Yeah, and I would say I've had plenty of bosses that get very emotional,
Yeah.
pound their fists, scream at me, whatever. So it goes across the board. I don't think it plays out really well in the end for them either. The networking piece of it is really critical, especially starting out. So how do you network? Well, there's a lot of meetups in the Portland area that you can attend. And don't just pick one, but start going to several of them and check them out. I mean, this is one, obviously. Angela and I worked on one with the SQA user group for quality. We worked at the Tech Association of Oregon, the TAO, on their forums. So you run into people and you interact with people as you go out and you do these meetups. And what I like about them is that you never really know what you're going to get out of it when you go.
Well, and Brett and I have never worked with each other, ever. We know each other because we went to these events, right? And we chat all the time or talk or see each other at events or chat with each other, right? We know each other because of those things, right? And not for any other reason.
And that's the piece of it, is that you're going to build this professional network of contacts. And you won't even know it's happening sometime. But I'll tell you what, you'll get a few years down the road, a few jobs down the road, and you're going to get a phone call from somebody that you worked with or that had you as an employee, and they're going to go, you know, how's it going for you right now? Would you be interested in a new opportunity? We're doing this over here, and I'm looking for some new people to join the team. That happens all the time. And it only happens if you're growing and maintaining your network of contacts. That network can get you into companies that you want to be at. If you particularly want to be at the Microsoft campus, you know, through networking, you're going to meet somebody who's there. And then
Or
they're
that
going to
has
be able
been
to,
there, or that has been there, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I have a countless number of people that I've worked with before that I end up seeing at another job. But one in particular, and I won't throw him under the bus, but basically we worked together initially back in the early 90s. And then we worked again at another company. And then we didn't see each other for years. And then we worked again at another company. And then we just recently worked again together at a company. And he and I are not friends outside of work. You know, we don't hang out or go out or whatever. He's just a professional acquaintance. But I've either recommended him and gotten him to come where I'm at, or he's recommended me and gotten me to come where he's at, because there's a relationship there that says, I know this person can get the job done. And that kind of credit and that kind of building your network is what's going to keep you employed and keep you getting those opportunities as you move through your career.
One of my examples too with networking is I was looking for a new job and I was interviewing. I was out interviewing because I was later in my career and I wanted a really good spot and I knew what I wanted. I was interviewing the companies, not the other, well, they were interviewing me, of course, but I was choosing. I mean, I could have gone through the whole interview process and decided no, thank you, right? But what I did with my network is when I started interviewing with this company, I reached out to looked on my LinkedIn account, saw who's already there. How do you like the company? What's good about the company? What's the environment like? What's the leadership like? I was able to ask questions, and it were people I hadn't talked to in years, but I just said, hey, I'm thinking about applying, or maybe I already had applied. I did that multiple times through my job search. So as you build your network and you've gone to different places, stay connected with the people via LinkedIn. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, it is. And just looking at the slide here, a couple other things to call out was volunteer. Volunteering is one of the best ways to meet like-minded people that have the same interests, and you'll be surprised at how those connections grow, because one person knows somebody here that knows somebody here, and it just branches out. So if you're not in the habit of volunteering, I highly recommend doing that in areas that you're passionate about, excited about. Yeah.
Do you have the best way to go about trying to figure out where those volunteering opportunities are?
Well, if they're not specific, like I like doing the food bank work or you know, whatever, I actually got on the volunteer match last time when I realized, geez, I hadn't volunteered in a while. So I got on there and I just looked in my area, some of the volunteering opportunities for what I was interested in. And that happens to be hospice and elderly care. And so I was looking at that and I connected with Kaiser and became a hospice volunteer with Kaiser. I've been doing that about 4 years now.
But you go also these meetups that you go to that are technology based, they're always looking for somebody to help them, right? I'm a co-founder of the SQUAD, which is the Software Quality Assurance User Group in Portland. It was really the first quality assurance meetup group that had happened. And I'm still connected to them, but I'm not going every week. I'm not leading the conversations like we're having here. We're not hunting for speakers, but they're always looking for people. They're always looking for people to help.
Absolutely. LinkedIn, obviously, I think everybody's familiar with the LinkedIn work. But once you build up your network there, that is very helpful because you do know people in other areas or companies.
I had an example also of the volunteering thing. I showed up for a job fair like an hour and a half or 2 hours early. The station like moved down the wrong time in Manhattan. And so instead of going and sitting out on my phone or something like that, I said, hey, how can I help you? And by the time I outworked 2 or 3 other people applying,
It's an interview that I will
That's
introduce
awesome.
you personally.
Nice.
And he took me around and introduced me to a couple people. So how you volunteer is also part of it. It's not just showing up and standing around. It's
Sure.
actually doing something. They will notice that and they'll want to.
Well, watching you do that, I would be going, wow, what kind of skills do you have, right? What would I be interested, right, in that person? And if it's a job fair, right? You're looking for people for your company, and you've got somebody over here helping you set up. I take a notice.
Oh yeah. I would say some of this also goes to just that intellectual curiosity. So not everything's about tech. You should have interests outside of tech and be amazed at how much of that ties back in to your tech life, and especially in those soft skill areas. So don't be afraid of those things. I mean, all of that is important to bring to the table. The last one then is about social media, Twitter and Facebook. As a hiring manager, when I'm looking at a candidate, I guarantee you I'm searching for you online and just seeing what it is that I can find about it. And usually not initially, usually like if you get down to the next
Yes,
round.
right, exactly.
So it's, but it's true that, what we put out there on social media does get noticed and does get seen. And you do have to take some care in making sure that you're not putting yourself in a bad light or a bad situation for your job or where you're working.
Would the absence of being on some of those throw up any flags for you? Like I don't really do Twitter or Instagram.
I never felt that way.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think the absence of you doing anything outside of study or work would throw up a flag for me. Like if you had no interest in doing
No
anything
hobbies, no.
but showing up at work, I'd be like, maybe need some more rounding on the edges there to balance it, right?
Yeah.
Because stress has to be relieved. This job is stressful. There will never be a time when you're not being put under stress at some point or another during your job and your
Deadlines,
career.
yeah.
And so you've got to have those kind of outlets. So definitely want to see that you're rounded. That's where I was saying on the volunteering, even on your resume, by putting organizations that you're connected with or volunteering that you're doing, that sends a message to me, the hiring manager, that you do more than what's asked of you. That you step out and actually do things that you're either passionate about or that you're giving of your time. And that sends a message.
And LinkedIn actually has a spot where you can link some of your another website. Like if you belong to a club that has it's a good club, right? It has nothing to do with technology of any sort. You can actually put that as one of your web pages. And I actually have a contact that reached me because he wanted me as a hiring manager or director to be able to look at somebody possible that he had, and he wanted a door in, and he looked at that link of my personal club, had a conversation with me via email, and I ended up talking to him, and now my company's doing business with him only because of that one thing, right? You don't know what that person's going to bring to you or you're going to bring to them, right? So you want to be careful what you put out there, but you certainly don't want to have absolutely nothing.
The one thing that I want to call out before we move on was we talked about on the business acumen and knowing beyond just the job, because that was something that we were talking about where when you get into a company and you're focused on your job, you should also be looking at what makes the company successful and be reading about and looking at the business as a whole and even in departments that you're not part of. I think that rounds you out as an employee. And when that opportunity comes up for somebody to lead a new initiative or a project, and you've already shown that you have that acumen about what this company is about, you're going to get noticed and you're going to get given opportunities like that from the management in charge. So definitely develop beyond just your job and know what the business goals are. My tagline on this one was about a person interviews you, a person hires you. So get to know people, because that's really what it's going to come down to. as you're going through your career.
How well can you connect in that interview, right? How well
Oh
can
yeah,
you, right?
that too.
But it's
So here's a big one. Boy, we
Oh,
could
we
go for
do.
hours on this. Yeah, we're running low, so let's hit it hard.
Let's see. Oh, we're tracking our accomplishments. So this, again, it ties into what we've already been talking about. Is we talk about our LinkedIn site, we talk about networking, we talk about mentoring, right? But if you're not absolutely some way, some shape or form keeping track of what your accomplishments are, one, at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, when the company does performance reviews, you believe me, you will not remember what you did in the January before. You don't. What you don't remember what projects you were on. You don't remember what you don't. You
It's kind of like the Oscars. You only give them to the movies that happen between October and December.
so
All the
it's-
great ones that
it's-
happen in
it's
January.
so hard.
nobody
So
remembers.
So what I try to do, I think keeping your resume up to date, keeping your LinkedIn up to date, but keeping a spot where you're always tracking any classes, seminars, right? Anything you learned, the company taught you something new, or you went to a class and learned something new.
So is that where you're saying where sorting the LinkedIn is good for? Because you make space for all that stuff on your actual resume?
No, because I would not overload your LinkedIn. My LinkedIn does not list everything I have on my resume. This is just me personally. I don't know how you attack it.
Oh, I think it's a fine place to put some of that.
Some of
Just
it,
not
yes.
at the top to clutter. it.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, in LinkedIn, you can put all your classes and your seminars and your certifications that you have. Make sure you put those, but you don't want to list everything you did.
So when you say certification, you're talking like Microsoft, not necessarily like I've done a bunch of Treehouse and some data and I just don't know like at what point it needs significant enough to put it up there and at what point it's just like
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So I think you do have to be choosy about what you load up there in that sense, because you don't want to nickel and dime a bunch of things. You could put more of a general statement about the studies and accomplishments for that, rather than trying to itemize each one. Because really the value that you're demonstrating is that you're a continual learner and that you're growing your skills and growing your competencies. And so think of it in that way. Does this show that I'm a continual learner? And then just put enough to show that as opposed to the details. Because yeah, I think Angela's right. I mean, just like with your resume, you don't want it to be 5 pages long because nobody will read it, right?
I'm just
So-
trying to envision with all these things that sound important where
Yeah, how do you
So-
think?
So I think just to clarify on that point, the tracking it is what's important, because that's for you. And when you do annual reviews with your boss and the company that you're working at, they're probably going to give you an opportunity to first write your own review. And I can tell you, when I had 23 employees that I had to write reviews for in about 3 weeks' time, I wasn't always on top of everything that everybody did. And so having them remind me through that was very helpful so that I didn't leave it out. And so you are your best advocate for your accomplishments throughout that process. The other thing I would say is to parlay that into your job search. When you're out there and you're getting ready to interview, one of the tools that I use personally, and I've learned this from articles that I've read, is create note cards with your accomplishments on them, and then flip them over and write down, what does that say about me? That says that I have leadership skills. It says that I have good deadlines, or managing my time for deadlines. And you get a dozen or so of those, and you read through those before you go into an interview. And then they're going to ask you questions, like behavioral questions, like, well, tell me about a time when you had to meet a deadline that you knew you weren't going to meet. And immediately you remember an accomplishment that you had where you were able to do that, and you can recount that during the interview. And I'm telling you, sitting on the other side of the aisle, so many
Company 30 minutes ahead of time, right? Sit in your car, have 15 minutes of quiet time, and walk to the desk or the appointment 15 minutes early, right? So that they get a call saying your candidate's here, and you go, thank you very much, and you look and you notice you're 15 minutes early, right? Hey, starting it off right. You don't want somebody coming, I'm sorry, traffic was just so bad, and you yeah, you can excuse that, but it just starts things off wrong. You know, you want to be confident of who you are and what you can bring the company. It might not be a good fit, and you should be analyzing them, as I said earlier. You should be interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Do not accept an offer. I coached somebody where she was having interviewing in 2 companies and she didn't know what to do. And but as I asked her questions about, you know, what do you want? What is, you know, digging into really what she wants, she ended up picking the company that didn't give her as much money and didn't seem quite right, but it felt better. And I keep in contact with her, and she's really happy that I helped her make that choice. And I didn't make the choice. I just asked her the questions. She made the choice.
And the tagline here about progressive responsibilities, I have a term that I've used called Groundhog Day when looking at people's resumes. They claim to have 10 years experience at this or that, but when you read through their resume, what it really looks like is they had 2 years of experience that they've repeated for 5 times, right? Because you have to watch as you're going through that you're actually growing and you're getting new opportunities, you're getting new accountability as far as getting the job done, developing new skills. That's what I see on the resume when I'm reading through the progression of the jobs. Seeing that you were a Java developer at this company and then a Java developer at this company doesn't tell me enough. I want to know more about what you accomplished at each of those companies for the work that you had to do, not just, you know, well, I finished all my Agile stories on time, right? There has to be a story there that you can tell so that I can understand, I want you working on my team because I resonate with what you just said you did. I need that on my team.
And managers look to round out their teams, right? If they have a team of 10 people and these 10 people work closely together, they don't want all extroverts. They don't want all introverts. They don't want all Java developers. They don't want all QA testers. They're going to get a well-rounded, somebody that's very energetic or somebody that challenges, you know, questions or, you know, they're going to look to round their team out. At least we hope the managers do. I try to look at it, and managers sometimes hire for somebody that's like yourself, right? But you really, as a manager, have to challenge yourselves to hire unique individuals that are different than you and that round out your team.
There's a lack of diversity for a reason, and just you know, the science behind it and the social aspect of it is people do gravitate towards people that are like them, or that they can associate, you know, their life to that person. And it's a skill that managers and leaders have to develop around diversity. And we've got a lot of diversity training and things that we go through on that says, you know, you always have to question, why do I like this candidate or this individual? And make sure that you're not allowing those social biases and those cognitive biases to come into play where you're applying that without really stepping back and analyzing why you liked the person. And, you know, admittedly, I've hired people before that I've regretted because I didn't question my own judgment enough during that process and make sure that I knew why I was hiring them or what I was getting for that. And so managers don't always get it right, and but you do have to continually learn.
And that's why you're telling your story, right? So that we can understand your story. Right?
The worst thing is deadlines. You've got to hire someone now. Sometimes you pull the trigger just a little too early.
Sometimes.
We're going to start off on some Q&A, but before we do, because I know that people, with the time that we're running, even online, may need to take off or what have you. So before we get into the Q&A, I just want to give the closing on this to point out some of the things that we spoke about. The skills, aptitude, and attitude. Know your job and know your company. Soft skills being important. That networking and mentors. The focus on results, not activity. We really didn't hit hard on that, but I want to make sure that you hear that message. Being busy gets you nowhere. What people want to see, and through those accomplishments, is what did you actually achieve? And the more measurable that you can make those, the better the story you have to tell. So I did this and it saved the company 3 weeks off of the schedule and went to market on time for the Christmas season, or whatever it was that accomplishment meant to the company, shows not only your business acumen, that you understand the impact of the business, but it tells that story of, I get results, I don't just stay busy. And that will work well for you as well as you're doing your interviewing and going out on job stuff. Don't burn bridges. My
Never,
gosh.
never, ever.
Portland area is such a small tech community, and I literally at every company have either hired people I worked with before, they hired me, or they just happened to be there or whatever. It is just, the network is there, and you're going to run into people over and over again. And I had one bad experience that I'll share where I was the poison on the team. This was early in my career. I felt like, well, they're just doing things wrong. And, I just let myself get really negative about what was going on at the company and with the team. And one of my vice presidents, after a meeting, and I was just a QA guy, as far as, I really didn't have any reason to question the judgment of my VP, right? Afterwards, he stopped me at the elevator and he's like, if you ever talk like that again in one of my meetings, you will not be in one of my meetings. And that's all he said. Man, it was like a ton of bricks hit me. It just sent me back. Fast forward, almost 15 years later, he is still in my LinkedIn network, and I reached out to him and thanked him for that experience, because as much as it stung and killed me, it was one of the best lessons I ever learned, which was don't let yourself become that poison apple or that negative voice, no matter what's happening, because guess what? You have the free will to stand up and leave today from any job that you're at. We stay in our jobs because we choose the benefits that we're getting from being there over whatever other noise or things are going on in that job. And it is a hard, line sometimes to draw when you say, enough's enough. And I think it's time that I have to.
Yeah, if you're not happy, you should consider leaving. But find your next job before you leave. We hire more people already employed than I left my job because I got ticked at my manager, or I didn't fit, and then the manager that's doing the hiring just kind of questions a little bit more as, was there something else there that I should know about? Are they not easy to get along with, or whatever, right? Never burn a bridge, ever.
Or do it tactfully. That you can walk away and actually cross the bridge. Okay, we're going to open it up now because we said a lot. Sorry about that. Let's do some Q&A and questions you might have. What do I do in this situation? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to touch on, you guys emphasized a lot about attitude. In your, I know you've said a couple things that pertain to attitude, but in you guys' profession, in your experience, what is the one thing you look for, an example of an attribute of an attitude of what you look for?
Sure.
What you see, what gets you ahead?
I like amiable, quiet, mousy people. I think what you want is someone who can present their case with passion and have some assertiveness, some confidence about it, but always being open to the conversation and hearing from others' viewpoints and what they have to say about it. What you don't want is someone with dogma and someone who's pounding their fist on the table saying it absolutely has to be this way or we can't do it. It just doesn't work that way, right? And they might even be right. They might be absolutely right that it has to be that way, but that attitude of how they presented it just turned off the rest of the team to the conversation. And it's critical that you don't do that. And so,
and you don't want to be super quiet either. You just look down and answer the question and fidget with your fingers or your notepad book, right? Practice interviewing. And you can practice interviewing with a friend. You can ask a colleague, a mentor to do that. I've done it many, many times, help people practice interviewing. Read articles. There's tons of short little articles on LinkedIn, or buy a book about how to interview. how to come in strong, sit up straight, arms on the table, be confident. You might not know what they're asking, and it's okay. You can say, I haven't had any experience with that software or that technology stack or whatever. It's okay. We're just asking questions to try to get to learn you, know you.
And the mentor for it, how do you go about trying to make it as equitable as possible? I guess, like, I know what I'm looking for to get from the mentor, but like, what is making helping me or someone else's time, or you know, like, how do I get them?
Sure. I think people that like to mentor, I'm sure Brett and I are both those type of people. We like to do it to watch you be successful. It's not about us. It makes us feel good that we're able to share the knowledge that maybe somebody either shared with us or didn't, and we learned the hard way, right? It's just the gratification, right? I spent the one example I gave you where this person had 2 jobs. She didn't live in Portland. She lived in a different city. A friend of a friend connected us, asked if I would help her. We had phone call after phone call after phone call for months with this and other things that she was kind of going through. And we did it on the phone, right? And you just don't know. And I think if you are a mentor and you like to mentor, I'm just looking for you to be successful.
Oh, yeah.
Makes
Well,
me feel great.
It does. I mean, it's an ego boost.
Yeah.
And we also, you know, as humans, we are always self-centered. I mean, quite honestly.
Well, that's what I'm coming to.
Even the most giving person is doing it because it's feeding them something.
Right.
And so, as you mentor someone, it's really, I have knowledge or I have experience that I'd like to impart on someone for their benefit. But the joy is really in seeing them do that. And my example, I mentored someone for at least 2 years, I would say, which was probably once a month, either coffee or phone call or email or whatever, with Q&A and what have you. And their growth during that time and their performance evaluation at work the year later was phenomenal. And, you know, they were trying to give me credit, but I was like, look, I just gave you ideas and thoughts and how I might do it. You put it into practice. So even though you have a mentor that may be good advice, you have to weigh that. Had that happen many times. I'll tell you, the first and foremost is when you get out there in these meetups and you do your networking, that's where you're going to get the opportunity for introductions and such. But I've had people come to me and say, I need a mentor because of this, or you know, I need to grow in this area or what have you. And because of my network, I know someone who's been there before. And I'm like, oh, you know, let me connect you with that. So I reached out to individual Debbie and I said, you know, I have someone who could really use your experience and advice. Would you be willing to mentor them for a period to give them some of that? Oh, yeah, you know, or no, I don't have time right now. I'm married, and maybe I'll look for someone else, right? And so it's a little bit of that goes on. But I'd also say that mentoring doesn't have to be a 2-year stint. I mean, I actually just thought of it's kind of like chiropractor care.
Mm-hmm.
You go in until your back feels better, and then you don't need that care anymore, right? And so it might be 2 visits, or it might be 6 visits, or whatever. But
it might just be one topic too, right?
Yeah.
It might just be, okay, I need help interviewing, right? Okay, you get through that and you practice it. Oh, one of the other things I was going to say about interviewing is interview, because that's practice. That's
interview
practice.
at the jobs you're not that crazy about.
They give you an opportunity to
Yeah.
interview. Go. You can turn it down. You're in control. You're in control, not them. They may want you. If you don't want them and it doesn't fit you, you can say no.
But I want to focus on LinkedIn as such a great tool. What are your thoughts in regards as the less desirable option to direct networking? The is like premium LinkedIn package where you can basically cold mail people. Have you ever responded positively to those?
Not a fan of cold.
Me neither.
No.
Me neither.
You know how many people call me or email me in a given week with, you know, check out my services, check out what I can do for you or what have you. When you're managing or leading a team or at a company, and the more senior you become, the more of those phone calls happen, you learn to filter. You just don't pay attention.
Yeah, I don't answer them. So I wouldn't do that.
That's good to hear
I
that.
wouldn't pay for it, and I wouldn't answer
I
them.
definitely don't pay for it.
No, I don't
Yeah.
either. I don't either. So
Oh, you
I'll pay
know-
for the LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm not saying the premium. You can
Okay.
pay for that because there's tools on there that are helpful for job searching and stuff. So that's, I did for a while and then I didn't. I mean, that's just a choice. But I'm saying don't pay for any of these services that
Yeah.
just come, fly by night or
Yeah,
whatever.
if you're looking for somebody, like let's say you go, okay, I want to work at this company, and I think that's the great company. I've done my research. I really want to work at, and you have no connections at that company. Find a friend of one of your connections that knows somebody at that company.
Yeah, that's the network.
And then ask that friend to introduce you, similar to what Brett said. Ask that friend to introduce you. It may or may not work. I've had instances where it's worked and instances where it hasn't worked. But you need that connection. You can't go cold. We're mostly going to ignore you.
Something that does work, however, and I don't know if anyone's looked at my LinkedIn, but writing a short blog or article that people can read, on whatever topic you want to do. And then as you comment on LinkedIn, you can even comment, hey, I'm looking to explore this area. It would be great to partner with or get a mentor in this area. That's totally acceptable because that's a volunteer thing. And somebody might go, hey, I did this thing on that. I'd love to share with you what I did or whatever. And so you can definitely use.
You don't even have to
tools
write the article. You can comment on other people's articles and say, the more that you're touching things in LinkedIn, the more you're visible. Writing articles, commenting on articles.
Right. Well, when I posted this one on LinkedIn, I had over 1,300 views almost immediately.
Wow. You write better than I do.
Well, no, it was just, I shared the article,
Oh,
and that was when I was
okay,
asking
yeah.
for
Oh,
a female in the
okay.
industry to join
Yes.
me for that perspective.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so things blow up like that. They get, and since then, I mean, there's probably been 36 people that have looked at my profile that I've never networked with before, right? And so all of it matters. And the one thing I would say though is LinkedIn has gone too far into the social end of it. It's a little annoying at this point, some of the things that are posted. So again, you learn to filter and cut out some of the things that aren't necessarily benefiting you. If I want to be on Facebook,
But
I'll
it's
do
but
that.
it's similar to Facebook where you can follow certain people and not follow other people, right? They're writing good, interesting articles. Follow them so you can see when they post something new. If they're just blah blahing about stuff, don't put it in your feed. Don't get it in your feed. Don't waste your time with that.
So I really appreciate you bringing up the point about practicing your soft skill interview process. We encourage our students to do it here, and we have a session on Tuesday with anyone who actually goes through that process. How much time do you think would be beneficial for somebody starting a boot camp for 15 weeks? How much time would you recommend that they attend these sessions prior to going further? If there's a 15-week program, should they go all of them and practice?
I don't know what all.
Did you say once a week?
Once a week.
Oh, once a week. Oh.
I would say that you have to measure that out based on your confidence level at where you're at. So what I would do is I would start out early and do it and get that first feel and then get the feedback and then start looking at, well, what do I want to work on? And then maybe a few steps down the road, you do it again and do the improvement. I think weekly, you might actually get too used to the idea to where you're not gaining the benefit of the activity. So yeah, I think if it was me, I would start immediately and then I would make sure that on a regular cadence I'm checking in on that, and then as I'm getting closer to going out in the real world for those interviews, then ramp it up.
And Brett said a key piece is track what the feedback is. Okay, how can I get better at that, right? You've told me I was too fidgety. Okay, how do I get better at that? Or you told me, whatever the feedback was. Focus on that feedback. Do another session a few weeks later, right? Did I get better at that? And is there something else that I should now, because something else got asked, I should do something else too? So, I agree.
But those are great opportunities. You definitely have to practice. And it makes you so much more confident going in. And like I said, being ready to tell your story. It's a must. Anything else? Yeah.
I've noticed on a lot of different company websites and even in your Craigslist job descriptions, profanity and beer in the workplace or anything alcohol in the workplace? Why?
Hmm.
And it's
That
not
is a
just-
great question.
Why?
Why do you want to work there?
That's the point.
Yes, exactly.
It's
So
a big turn off.
and that's the edge, right? So some companies, so Portland has a certain reputation, all right, and part of that is the dog reputation. Well, if you're allergic to dogs, why would you want to work someplace that allows dogs into the workplace all the time, right?
Yes.
Or cats or whatever, right? And so you do have to kind of measure that. Is that a place I'm going to be comfortable working? The beer thing and alcohol thing is still a surprise to me because that came up in the 90s and then disappeared for a while and it's back now. And I'm like, I understand we're a brewery town and, you know, microbrews are everywhere. But like when we do Squag and Jama, they've got the taps there. And when you're down at Cvent, they've got 2 taps, you know, of kegs in their room. And yeah, I mean, that's not okay for a lot of people to have that.
And I
So-
run into other women who say, I've never drank alcohol in my life. I don't want to be around that. I don't even like going to some meetups because
So-
it's there all the time.
Yes, so I think
there all the
it's
time.
right, it's a choice, just like the company you work for is a choice like the spouse you live with. You have to decide, what are you willing to put up with?
You spend more time
What
with
are
the
you
company.
willing to put up with? What do you want in that spouse and or company? What are they gonna offer me? What am I gonna offer them? Right? I mean, you have to make choices, and there are people those things fit for. There is the millennial crowd that's going, beer,
Thought we were gonna
absolutely.
get through this without using that
There's
word.
also, I know, I'm sorry. There's also environments that for me it's hard to work at. And I would say environments that have no walls around any cubes. There are tons of them nowadays. I get very visually stimulated when things move in front of my face. And I can't do that. So don't go to a place where they have no walls around your cubes or have no offices, right? Don't that's a simple choice. What does your work environment look like? And when I interviewed at Conway, which is now XPO, when I interviewed there, I said one of the last things that I went for multiple interviews, multiple sessions. And one of the things I asked for, he said, is there anything else that I can answer for you? I said, I'd really like to see the environment, the place where, because I was in this meeting room, right? Every time I came, I was in a meeting room. Can I see the floor? Sure. Went up to the 3rd floor, walked around, was able to see what it felt like. Was it loud? Was it quiet? Was it bright? Was it walls? Were there, right? I could see what it looked like, right?
That's really important.
Yeah, it is. Well, for some people it is. So you have to really decide, what do you want? And if you don't know what you don't want, what you do or don't want, that's okay. Your first job, you're going to learn. Write those things down. I like this. I don't like this. So when you go interview or you're talking to people, you're going to know, well, geez, if there's no walls in any of the cubes and it's a very open concept and that bothers you, then you're not going to go there, right? It's not going to be successful for you.
But I think the
How would it be as long as they was putting the apostrophe instead of the vowels, and you know what that word is.
Yeah.
It's spelled out.
so
And it is a profane word.
somebody's trying to give an edge, and it's just a bad decision in my judgment.
Black hat coat,
So,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just a bad decision on their part because you're alienating people like yourself. So was there any deliberate harassment or intimidation or bullying type of activity? That you take to HR because that needs to be reported. Because if it happened to you, it's probably happening to others as well. And I've worked in environments where we've had at least one person that was a bully, and nobody wanted to go into the meeting because they felt like they were going to be attacked, right? So those kinds of things have to be addressed that way. If somebody errantly drops a profane word and you take them aside and say, that offend, I don't like that, offends me, it also turns me off to the rest of the conversation, and they acknowledge it, and then they're not repeating the behavior, well, that was the right way to handle it. So you don't always just run to HR just because something happened. The other thing I would say is, I always get in trouble when I bring this up, but HR, unfortunately, is not your advocate. Okay, it took me years to learn this. I used to think that HR was there for me as an employee. HR is there to protect the company from risk. All right? And so, as an employee, you have to understand and you have to weigh your own decisions about what you're going to go to HR with and why you're going there with it, because their job is to protect the company from risk.
But there is some things that when you report, they have to report.
Oh,
You have
no,
to,
mandatory, yes.
There are things that if you report sexual harassment or any types of protected classes, you have to report. When you report that, they have to report it.
Agreed. I wasn't,
Right.
good call out,
Right.
because I wasn't saying that you wouldn't take those kinds of things. You absolutely would, because they have an obligation to you
Yep.
as an employee, right? What I was getting at more was, don't burn bridges or create things with HR, because just understand that they're not there just to work for you. They
That
are
you're just
there on the side of the
complaining
company.
or-
Yeah. So there was a question or comment?
Well, I was going to say, I've been doing research for 10 years.
Yeah.
We had the CEO of a large company called SPO come in, and it was the first time I ever met him. And he brought up a few times, and it seemed like he was serious. And what I took away from it is, I don't really like this guy. He's not very professional. And two, I have to be very just to avoid using any kind of slander because it really, really does
Mhm.
it's really
Oh, yeah.
unprofessional. And it doesn't matter who you're taking this.
Yeah.
Also, HR is not.
Yeah. And I don't mean to be so hardline or brutal about it. Just be aware that, it's not like you're going to go to them and they're going to help you solve all the problems. I've had people go to HR and find themselves out of work shortly thereafter. So you just have to weigh what it is that you're going. But
Those people are being paid by the company to protect
Yeah.
and they'll do what they can within the profit.
Right. Thank God we have those laws. Yeah.
I was also going to say that, when you're dealing with coworkers, you guys brought up some great points, soft skills. Soft skills, how do you handle a challenge? So one of the things that I talk about with students too is that think about all the questions I'm asking now in this soft skill process. Think about what I want you to do is when you get in that situation and you're tired and you're facing stress and you're everything, how would you handle that question when you go to the next interview? How do I handle it? And if you just take a step back before you get upset and say you don't have reactions or all sorts of things, take a step back, think about it. What can I do to handle this in a professional, positive way? Certainly, if somebody is doing something illegal or discriminatory or anything, HR. There are opportunities for you to collaborate with people and de-escalate as well. And then you can talk about that. Talk about times of change of what happened. Yeah, the time when I had somebody that was using profanity consistently in meetings. What I did was, the result was the person stopped it, we had the developed trust and mutual rapport, and then the person's like, wow, great, you handled it. Because the other challenge is that HR is, not necessarily referee. And a lot of times you have to take a step back and say, what is my culpability in the situation? Am I aggravating it, or how do I be constructive? And then the final thing is that giving back assertive feedback. I had a manager that I had to talk to about something, and they actually appreciate feedback from their employees as well. But you're respectful about it. You understand the company order, and you go in there with deference and say, here's some things that I'm concerned about, here's some things I would suggest. And as long as you're respectful for them, they will be open to that feedback, as long as it's not demeaning or constructive feedback can be very good. And so it's how you handle it that makes the biggest difference. You may be absolutely right in your approach, but are you willing to down the hill for it? You can say, hey, this is my concerns or my challenge, and let them decide how to handle it. And then if they don't go with it, that's fine. You don't sit there and hold a grudge and say, gosh, I didn't go with my idea. You say, no, that's the decision you made, and then you keep doing the best I can. And so that's being assertive, not cowering and hiding, but not being abusive or destructive in any way. It's the middle ground. That's what assertive is.
Yes, yeah.
One thing, you were mentioning different websites where they those jobs. I think you said dice.
Mhm.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Any other questions? Well, thanks for that. And as you know, this is the Academy. We are a boot camp. So if you're interested in learning more about our school, please do form. I do ask that if you could fill out a survey, just giving your feedback on the event itself. And so help us provide feedback to the guest speakers, and even to our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll hang out here if people have specific questions or whatever. I've got time.
Before I forget, can I get your business cards?
I don't have
I
it.
don't have one on me.
Ah, all right. Well, I'd like to be able to send you guys a thank you card. So,
Let me see if I've got anything. At my new job, we don't do